Hello and welcome. I'm Bill Wake. We're here working on a program to assess the similarity of tunes, and we're finally working on file input. We've been using text input for a long time. So let's go ahead over to the IDE. All right, I did a bit of work offline. On the normal text input, I added error tracking. So there's an indicator when you get an error and a parse error basically. And I switched it to hold strings of error messages rather than this parse error that came from our parser. If you click on the error indicator, it shows the errors. And then we took out the error view on the main panel, and we don't need them in the packet anymore. We're going to say if somebody generates errors, they ought to show them. I also, let's see, FileSource, track messages. Oh, okay. Yeah. So same deal there. We're going to have to track the errors in the FileSource. Finally, text output. Basically, I modified it to take a pipeline, which is right now it's an array of things. We'll create a real object soon. And then I combined Parsons code view and text output. They started out the same thing, and for some reason I decided they would be separate. Now I made them combined again. So let me just run. We got tests passing, so we're in a good state to do just about anything. We'll run and we'll see that the text output view is gone. There's only the Parsons code. I gave it a different icon, and we still have that quantize feature. We can turn on or off, and theoretically we can turn this on or off, but we probably shouldn't. Okay, but now the output happens in here. T title, T colon title, and key G, D, E, F, G. Okay, so it puts the text of the report in this file. Okay. So for us, we're working on the file opener. Right now we have the file source, and I think we're basically done. We track active, we track a file name that's specific to file source. We track the input, the errors, we got our names, and then a transform function that parses and puts the errors in our errors list. It also puts the file name in the output stream. All right, I think that's all pretty good. This is covered by transform. Transform is already observable object. Okay, so it should be a minor change. I mean, if it compiles, it should work. All right. We'll do that. Okay, so what we need is a view, and I think the text input view is going to be really close to it. So we'll start there. At some point, I probably should combine them. Let's see, where's UI? Text input view. Okay. And this thing takes text input source and has the notion. Okay, so the show errors, that's the error thing I mentioned, this exclamation mark triangle. It puts this up as a button, so if you click it, it says show the errors, and then showing the errors is done on a sheet. All right, let's demo that because we're going to want the same behavior. Really, I should just generalize it, maybe to start with X1. Let's say we forget the title. It does what it can, but then it puts up this, and we can show that. Okay, so well, the difference is that the text input just has a text editor in the middle. Okay, I'm gonna vertical icon. That's this. A spacer, then the text editor. And a spacer and an image. Yeah, can we... Let's see. I was going to do some research on ViewBuilder, but let's... It's like, do I want to make this an independent thing, or do I want to... I need to source. And he's got to be a specific type. Oh, that drives me nuts. All right. Let's see what it's ViewBuilder. A custom parameter attribute that constructs views from closures. Okay, so what this does is it lets us put a list of items in context menu. And it's got some hidden stuff going on. This build block stuff turns the content into, it accepts 1 through 10 or 0 through 9. But I think mostly you can just ignore it. Well, okay, let's search for example. That example doesn't thrill me. All right, so this inlineable public init. I guess this is the init for HStack. Right, ViewBuilder content goes to content. It finds the build block with 2 members. So what I'm thinking to do is I want to take, I know I can parameterize this. That part probably won't care. But I want this block to be sent in. Okay, let's do this. Let's make struct text input view is a view, and let's make this be input view. Of observable transform, and then we say where observable transform implements transform, which is an observable, so I'm just using the name. Okay, then I can do this. And this. All that stuff's on transformation, but has no member input. Let's call it, maybe I'm back to source and sync. Protocol sync is a transform, but it's also got to have input, right? And errors. Transform. And where's text input? Source, we need these two things. And we can't see they're published. Okay. Now this should be where you already sync. Oh, I don't need the word public either. Because protocol implies public. Okay, now I'm saying, get set. I definitely need to get them, and I think I probably need to set them. Okay. This should be source. Okay, now text input view to short. Nope, that's not what I had in mind. I wanted you to do this. Now it's really TBD. Okay, so right now, text input view is not the same as the others. Well, I think I want to say this is input view. I know I've done something like this before. I think probably as well as working on the pipeline stuff that we didn't, well, I did it off camera. Okay, now this thing, text input view, preview source, source text input source. Past call takes no. Does he need source? Okay, he can take the object we care about. Okay, his type is text. Text input source, right? Okay, that's promising. Oh, does not conform. Text input source does not conform. Oh, that's true. It does not. Okay, what else is going wrong down here? Text input view. Text input view conform to view. Well, is InputView, which is a view. I don't see the problem. Inheritance from non-protocol type. Okay. I think maybe I want to use that, not do it. So I think I want to say input view of, and then we'll probably need this. Source. Okay, now he does not know what to do with that. Missing label source. Okay, he does know what to do with it. Okay, let's see if this is going to work first. Observed object should be text input source. Okay, it's going to infer this and say, oh, you are a source, so we're good. Okay, how's everybody else? All right, let's run this. Well, that looks fine. X1, T title, KFG, ABC, whatever. Yeah. Okay, I think that's working. So what we've done is we've pulled out a helper input view. Okay, so you can think of this as kind of pre-refactoring or pre-factoring, some people call it. Some people call it nesting. I'm trying to push the shape of the current structure into something where I can make my new one implement in a very straightforward way. Now, this is where the ViewBuilder stuff comes in. I want to give it, I'd like to do this. I'd like to say, do an input view with your center view being this. And the question is, can we do that? Well, we can't right now. Extra trailing. Okay, the question is, this is where the ViewBuilder thing comes in. Okay, so I want to get back to a ViewBuilder example. Okay, they've done this too. ViewBuilder content, yeah, I think. Now, now some of this, okay, let's get this in here. Observable transform. Okay, so I'm going to add this as an argument. The transform and then the code. Okay, and that should be done here. Okay. And then content. Let's move this up. Content is our other input type. Content of view. Oh, maybe I'm saying this in an awkward way. Okay. So Self.source equals source. Content equals content. Okay. All right, so that makes this happy. We can, I guess we could preview something. Okay, but it looks good still. All right, let's do the preview. Should look the same. Okay, now input view passes in text editor source. I think background and foreground color, that seems like we could keep it down there. Okay, padding, I don't know, frame height. That seems a little different. Okay, so now I just want to use content. See, they're just putting content, and I can optionally put things on it. Okay, so here I'll do content, and we'll just comment this out for a moment. Okay, and it looks the same. Okay, I'm on a track here. I played around trying to get some border on top above my first row of letters, and I'm not getting it. X1, T title, key of G, DF, DF, FD, whatever. Okay, that's working. Now let's keep these two down here. Because I think we want to say whatever object we're putting in there, we would like that to just come from this object's information, source information. The main color, foreground and background color, need to be contrasting and color. Yeah, so because it's going on a background that's of color, we want to contrast the background of this entity to become transformation type. Contrast. All right, I think we'll keep that here. Okay, and that means we can take it out of here. We may decide it's not right, and then we'll deal with it. Okay, but I'm going to run this and just, oops. Okay, I guess I'll decide very quickly. It's not right. Input view. Okay. Right. So this should still work with, you can see the invisible thing there. So let's make an error. X1 key G. This, and we can bring that up. Okay. Alrighty. So I feel like that is pretty good. Okay, so transform, I'm going to define this in the transform file, I think, is as good a place as any. So a source promises it's going to have an input and handle errors, which seems reasonable for it. Okay, and oops. Yeah, we'll come back to that. We're still working on this one. Okay. Protocol type. Now this input view, I think we can extract that to its own file. Okay, and text input view. Preview. Okay. And I want to get rid of this in the long run, so I don't want to spend a lot of time fiddling with it. Okay, that is good. All right, let's build front tests. And we're just take a look. Okay, I think we're good. Okay. Whoops. All right, so our to-do, create a view for the file opener. Yes. We can do that. So we got text input view. Let's make a new file. Swift file, file input view. And it's going to look a lot like this with a different thing in the middle, so we'll just borrow. This is file, and this is FileSource, which is not yet a source. InputView requires FileSource to conform. Okay, we want him to be a source now because he's got input and errors. Okay, file input view. This is file input view. Okay, and it's just FileSource. Okay, and we can preview this. This is not anything yet. It's just showing the old interface. Okay, file reader noticed the icon changed. It was text input. Now it's this file thing. That's okay. And this is, well, it's still got that implicit error thing. All right, now what we want this to be though, and we did a little work in content view. No, it's in the playground. Well, okay. Make file input view built like text input view. No, open the playground. There was some error with that. I think Friday or Thursday. I kind of recreated the playground and it seemed to go away with some reboots and whatnot. So, okay. But we did this the other day, a file input view, and this was just creating, this is a spike really. It's just creating enough to see that we can get to it and this can run it. Okay. Automatically run. So how about running it? Oh, there it is. Okay, we can say open file. And when we do, it pops up a normal file selector. Okay. And so I'm imagining we're going to do something like that as a button there. Gosh, this looks like a lot of... I mean, it's like we ought to be doing it, right? So, okay. Well, right. So let's give ourselves the state. Actually, this. Okay, file input view. Here, it needs the state to know whether to show the dialog for that thing. Okay. Now, I don't know if there's a way to test this more directly. It would be nice to know these things were happening. We'll do it and then see what we can do. Okay. Oh, the other thing I wanted to do, where's my no scaling? Is it at the bottom? Oh, resources. I'm going to duplicate this. Oops. Apparently that's not how that works. And I want a empty file. Empty file. Let's make it no scaling.abc. Now I want to see if we can open this. Use ABC. A lot of people use text form, but they are ABC sort of their defined type. And let's just take the first couple, 3. Really? I can't put anything in there? Let's delete that. Where's just text file? Oh, maybe I want this one. Okay. No, it's apparently got to be empty. That seems so weird. Like, why wouldn't it let me just put it in there? Is there a text file? I know I didn't have this much trouble when I put to-do.txt in there. Well, let's do this. I don't know what the colors mean. Quote. Okay. And let's change this. What? Show in Finder. Tablet. Oh, understandable. Okay. Tablet, it's a music editing program I have. So if it wants to read music files, I guess I understand that. Let's just do text edit. Oh, so maybe it's a question of display, not. Okay. All right. Okay, and I've got that. All right, so let's run our spike again. I lost my playground. Okay. Open file. Oh, he's there. Oh, good. Okay, I'm happy. All right, so we verified we can open ABC files as well as text files. Okay, so file source. Now we want FileInputView. Okay, we don't want this text editor here. We want a button. And I think we put it in the playground. Let's use it. We need a state and a button. Okay, the body is show import.toggle. And make this ... because we're going to open a new thing. Get rid of the input view. Well, we may want some of that. We may need something like that. We'll keep that for a moment. All right, and preview. Oops. Button show toggle. That one goes away. Should just be open file. Oh, okay. We want to be input view of source with this inside. Nice. Okay. And we still have the error message thing over there, but this is in the center. All right. And what else? Okay. I think that's that piece. Okay, now we want to present. And he gives a result, and we got to do stuff and catch stuff. And where are you the end of? It's presented. Get a little more space here. Okay, result in. Okay, so whether we should show the import, we let text types in. When you finish, we're just doing this for now. Otherwise, we're not doing anything with it. Okay, we'll get a little bit of stuff here, and then our button. Let's see, where is Parsons code view? I think we had a button there, button style, bordered prominent. We may want to change that too. Make a little nicer button, I think. Yeah, not really doing much, is it? Slightly rounded. I don't know. Oh, we don't have this view anywhere. Okay. It's only what we see here. Again, I'll hold off on this. Okay. But this is the basics of it. All right, let's add it to our content view. Okay, so we have text input. Let's make a new object, a state object. File source. Okay. And we can put this first. Transform file source. Okay, so that should just make it. Cannot find file source. Oh, I called it file input. Okay. And then we need to display it, which looks a lot like this. Oops. Okay, if file input is active, do a file input view, source text input, file input. Okay. Okay, I think the name file reader maybe should be file input. Okay, we don't have the mutual exclusion going, but that should pop up a dialog. Let us accept it. Print out some stuff. Done opening. File is this stuff. What's that character at the beginning there? Do I still have that? Preview's fine. Thanks for the offer. Other. I mean, for my purposes, developing, it's handy if I can open this to text edit, but I use ABC files, or at least I could. All right. Oh, those are funny quotes. Okay. We're gonna. Let's look at no scaling. Okay. I think we will not worry about that at the moment. All right, but it read this. Did it say done? Done opening. Here's the file. Is that what we said to do? Print the body. Done opening. Yeah, this happened asynchronously. Okay. All right. And this button looks similar to that one. Okay, other than well, those two color things. We may have to define, I don't know. maybe a little tricky. I'd like to give a style that just took the source and figured that stuff out. All right, let's see the preview. Should be green text on a sand button. How did Run get that? Parsons. I don't know if I want to worry about that right now. Nope. Button Run. I guess I'll leave it prominent and okay, something's okay. We'll leave that for now. I can't tell if that's the sand. It looks like it might be a light gray. Okay. And open file ... Okay. Now, this is where I wish the source was doing this work. Let's see if we can do that. Func handle input. Type of result is result URL error. Oops. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, so I'm saying, oh, let's fix that name. Okay, so this one, when it runs, it should just print handled, and then we can, I don't know if I can create an input view. Okay, where's my name? File inputs, file source. Okay. And if I run this, he should have printed handled. Okay. Now I think I can let's see if we can test this directly. He knows his type is FileSource. I think maybe that belongs on our source. Okay, let's see if we can move this over. File source. Public func handle result. Now, can I call that here? Okay. So my hope is it says handled because it dealt with it in the file source. Open the file. Doesn't matter which. Handled. Okay. So this is not being referenced anymore. Good. All right. And now I've got something testable. I probably could create a view. I mean, it's just a struct, so there's probably not a big deal if I do. But I'm liking it better over here. Okay. And this is just notes, so we can test our way in. And what was the other thing I was thinking? Oh, I just want to make sure. I wanted to create an error file, but I think we're a ways from that. Okay, so let's see. So test should run. What do I know? Okay, file source tests. No static. Oh, I changed. Huh. File input. Okay. Add file input view button to file input view, calling file source to handle results. Okay. So this is part of the push that I want to really minimize the logic in my view. Okay. I don't get around. I mean, file importer is part of the view logic, so I kind of don't have a way around that. But now this handler is totally out, and so I can test that back in the non-IO land. Okay, so I'm going to pass in results to that thing and make sure it does what I want. Okay. Let's see. So file input, file source, and file source tests. So let's put this one and a tab to the right. Okay, and this one to the tests. Okay, I don't care about no static info. All right, published fields. Well, that's kind of redundant test. That was really making sure that we were observable objects, and that pretty much nothing else would function if it weren't. The UI wouldn't hook up and everything, so I'm going to delete that test. All right, source starts with no errors, transform with no errors, transform errors, finds them, and resets them. Okay. Func test. Well, what are we going to test? We're going to test the result, and we got two cases. One is there's a failure, and we couldn't do something for some reason. Maybe the file couldn't be found or it couldn't be opened. Maybe it's not text. I don't know if that would be a problem. All right, but we're going to test. We'd like to see, what would we like to see? We'd like to see that error message in our object in here. We'd like an error message that's like file couldn't open, couldn't load, I would say file, and then the error message. Okay, file error is reported. Now, it's been a while. Xcode. Notice I've got this dispatch queue main. I've got a problem that this method runs in a thread. It's a separate thread. It spins off its own thread. When it's good and done, then it gets back to me. But now I'm reporting an error, and I think this has to be reported in the main thread. Okay, so I know there's an Xcode thing to do that, but it's been too long since I fooled with that sort of thing. Okay, so Xcode, wait for thread. There was a... Yeah, stop it. Okay, wait for expectations. That's the kind of thing I'm after. Wait for existence. What does that do? You don't always have an element to wait for the existence of it. Yeah, we don't have to document expectation. Document expectation. What's that up here? Well, we can look at Xcode and wait, or XCT waiter. Test case waits explicitly. Document expectation. Okay, XCT waiter. How about we spell that right? Yeah, okay, wait for XC test expectation. Expected outcome. The number of times fulfill must be called. Who's fulfill? See, this might be me plugging in something. Okay. Hate to do that, but yeah, this fulfill. Who's gonna call this? Well, I know what I can do. I can add a parameter to my my function that provides a call to fulfill async after deadline now plus 5 expectation day. Okay, wait for this result. Wait for expectations. Okay, I mean this sort of works. It works, but you don't know why. Sorry. Okay, it fails because A went after that. Okay. I'm gonna say, all right, we're gonna write our test somewhat that way. The expectation is result handled. Okay, and we're going to call, well, we're going to create a file source. Okay, so we create a file source and we set up an expectation. Then we're going to call source.handleResult. We're going to create a result. How do I create one? Dot failure. Okay. And is that my value? Error. Okay. And now we're going to handle pass in result. This is because I don't know how to do this. Let's see, error. He may have nothing in him. Okay. Then we do a wait for expectation, and let's give it a 2-second interval. I guess gotta do float. Okay. I guess I don't. Okay. Parameter success cannot be inferred. I'm going to type any error.type does not conform to expected type error. Well, let's see. What errors can you really get? What are we doing? Unfortunately, Swift is also this bank protocol or something. For ways to handle errors. Yeah, I could just create my own. Common errors, okay. Not quite what we're after. Well, I don't want to spend all day on this. I think I can just say extension string implements error, and then I can use a string. Some IO error. Okay, handle this. Wait for that. Okay, this test should fail. We'll probably find a better way over time. Redundant conformance. Oh. Should already be happy. Okay. Test should fail after a 2-second pause. Whoops. Sashar 172. Cool. Thanks. Glad you're enjoying them. Okay. So yeah, we expected a failure. We got one. The failure is, should be we violated our timeout. Okay. Asynchronous wait failed, exceeded timeout. Okay, unfulfilled result handled. All right. So now the problem is this error handling case should happen on the main thread, and we don't know if the thread is done or not. So it printed handled, but that's kind of a lie. Do we see the word handled? Yeah, we see it there. It's not really what's supposed to happen. So we have a failing test. Now, the problem I have is I don't have a way to make this expectation true. And so what I'm going to say is handle result is going to take another argument, and it's going to be what do we call those? Really, I don't know. I call them callbacks, but they're functions that we call them when we're done. Okay. I mean, like JavaScript uses this, although maybe it's not as common now, but we're providing something that takes nothing, calls nothing, and it's optional. Okay. And it equals this. All right. So let's format this so we can kind of read that better, because that's a little complicated. Okay, so I'm saying, gee, I wish handle result would let me know when it's done. And how can it let me know? I want to pass in a function that takes no arguments, generates no results, but I don't want to have to pass it in. If I leave it out, just call an empty block. That would be fine. All right, and now this case, okay, so we got result is our variable. Okay, we're going to switch on result, and that's really two cases. So let's do the failure case first, and it takes an error. We got to do something, and then the other case is success, takes a URL, and we're going to do something. All right, and for now I'm just going to return on the error case or the success case because I don't want to do anything. But if you get a failure with an error message, fine. If you get a failure with an error message, we're going to want to trigger the error message being recorded. We're not going to print it. And the triggering, I'm going to put it in an async block. I want to do it in the main queue because the UI will be triggered by it. This method, we want to affect errors, and that's published, and which means there's somebody looking for it. In our case, that's the UI. Okay, so if you get a failure, you get an error, and we're going to print, what do we say? Result of failure, expectation. Right, and I think we can assert, at this point we've already waited, so if we look at source.errors, that should be a string, and it should be the error message. Let's say couldn't load file, and then some IO failure. Okay, so we're expecting that when this runs, it'll first call our callback function, and then it'll by the time that's done, it'll call that. But when it's done with that, we'll have this error clause in there. Okay. Now something's, okay. So I added a little bit to the test, but I haven't done anything with it. We haven't even used error. Okay, so let's run this test again. We added an expectation here, or an assert. Cannot convert this to argument type void. What? File importer is on completion source.handle result. Okay, I'm going to do this a little differently. I don't know what's going on there. Let's take this stuff here. Well, actually, this whole thing. let me undo that. Okay, we're there. Let's take this, copy it up here, and this. Why are you not indented right? I sure think you ought to be there. Okay. I'm going to take this out of here. Okay. Now, can I do that? No, it's still not going to work. Okay. I think it'll make my error go away. My compile error, but my runtime error should still be present. This is one of our trickier tests. Okay. That compiled. Did it run? This should still fail. Okay, good. Async, and then result. Okay. I think what I can do. Okay, if I call, well, my theory was to call handle result with result. And then I want to call the callback. Ugh. Call the callback. But again, I've got a thread issue. This will not. Let's see. I think I can do it like this. Async. I haven't really used it in Swift. But you're right. Maybe I should figure that out. I really only need this for my test case, so the real one wants to do that. Well, let's see if we can find a quick example. Unless you know one, you can just tell me. In Swift, I don't want the video. Yeah, that's basically what we're doing. Yeah, let's try it. Okay, so the completion, they're gonna have to put async on there, right? All right, let's function and result, and then async after it. Okay. Okay, and then does that automatically run it? Okay, and so we'll call, I guess we'll say await that. Okay. Replace result here. Well, result error is coming from the input. Let's see. Where's text input view? File input view. Okay. I'll get rid of that. Okay, so I'm expecting async function type. So I think the problem is this, the file importer completion, that's not defined by me, and I think he's saying he doesn't want an async function. Now maybe async throws some return with this replace result error. Is that gonna work? Async call. But I want to make this synchronous again. Okay. Before structure concurrency. Okay. Result. Success failure. Okay, that's kind of what we do, yes. Now, success, print the images, yes, and do whatever. Failure, print them with the failure. But where's... Okay, this is probably what you're trying to tell me. Okay, images equals try wait. Fetch images. Call resize. Wrap file importer and async. Return try await. Wrap file importer and async. Okay. Whoops. That's over here. Well, I'm not sure. This is the compromise I had in mind. So if I funnel through handle result, it's going to enforce that. It's going to convert the async to sync. He's calling handle result. So now can I put the completion handler back, or do I need to? I guess if I test do handle result, I'm waiting for it, right? So we'll work on names too, but do handle result. It's no longer in a wait. It's just that, and then this is okay. Is that? Okay. Trying to make sense of your notes again. Handle result async throws some return. With this, you replace your error. Yeah, I don't think I get a choice because the file importer is, it's the predefined thing. Whoops. FileInputView, where are you? I mean, that thing is predefined on here that it calls the completion handler. So I don't think don't think I can do that. In a result, async throws a produces URL, or I guess an error if it threw an error. Yeah, that'd be nice. Okay, I think I've got enough here to do it. And I think this is doing nothing with it. I want my test to fail again. Here, this test should fail. We don't need the expectation anymore because your async idea got rid of that. Because this thing implicitly waits, I guess. Okay. He failed. He printed handled. Okay, let's take that out. Okay, so what I want to happen is the errors should get this new error message. Okay, so errors.append, and the message had some text, couldn't load file, and then the error. Okay. Now I think this should be passing now. If it's not, oh, wait a minute. I saw the word handled come out. No, wait. Failed. Asynchronous wait failed with unfulfilled expectations. How is that message even? That's the message I expected. Okay, let's clean the build and clean the tests. And delete this. Somebody else may be writing handled, I guess. Do handle errors written. Okay, that's not waiting for it. Function handlers at async throws URL. Do some more catch later. Okay, let me put that in here directly and see if I can make sense of it. Okay, let's call it handle 2. Async throws produces a URL, and then you're saying do something and then catch. Okay. Do some more catch line error, end error. Something a rethrow here, I guess. Okay. But I have to do something here. The work with checks. But this thing has to take this, though, right? I mean, that's what's coming from the importer. I think that's what it's giving it. Well, I'm giving it. Right. Yeah, the completion method takes that result. Okay. Okay, I think let's do wait. I mean, I almost think what we're saying here is more like switch result case failure. I mean, this is converting it to place result URL code. Sorry, I'm dense on this. I appreciate you trying to guide me along here. Doing catch it is your result. Right, but this method, I mean, it's saying I'm going to call, you give me a function that takes a result and returns a void, right? So handle or whatever it is has to have this signature, doesn't it? Okay, you're saying handle2 does not want this. Doing catch it as your result. Okay. I'm feeling kind of stuck. I feel like what you're telling me is gonna fit. I mean, it would be like a better file importer would use async await, and it would spit out either a URL or an error, and then I could deal with it. But I think on this side, the UI side, I don't think that's terribly handy. Now I don't know how to make this callback thing work. Right. So I think, unless you tell me otherwise soon, this I have no choice on. That they've defined the interface is they want this and only this. So I can't even call handle results. I can't even add an optional argument. They're not willing to deal with that. So I'm going to go back to a callback approach. I kind of hate to, but yeah, I think I'm feeling stuck. So I want to do something I can do, and then we can work on improving it, I think. So I'm going to take this out too. All right, so now I have handle result. I think what I want to do, I've got to give this something somewhere. So I'm going to say it knows it. Void to void, and it's optional. Okay, and I'm going to call it here, which I don't think worked. Reference to callback. Yeah. It definitely had that problem. Okay, so there's definitely some haters on light mode out here. Okay. All right. So I think my intent is this callback gets executed, and I've got to set it up in the test to expect it. So there's the source. Let's do source.callback equals no, maybe I want to go back to this expectation. Let expectation equals, we had that somewhere here, XCT, self.expectation with description. Okay. Okay, create a source, set an expectation, callback, build a result, and then handle the result. And then in the end, we should be able to wait for expectation, timeout, 2 seconds. Okay, and this will, I'm going to say it's going to fail because I haven't done this yet. Handle result. Why it won't tell me this here. Can I convert binding subject? Oh, that should be handle request too. Okay, so this test should fail because I don't call my expectations, my callback. Okay, so the errors. Okay, it says errors written, so it did get into my call here. I guess it would have to. It ran this in the main thread, and then it failed because there was no callback. Couldn't load file IO, some IO. Oh. Error. Okay. But if I call my callback and I take out my print, okay. Now I expect to pass. And I'm not. Ugh. Expectation, unfulfilled expectation. Why? Callback is expectation.fulfill. What's the matter here? Musician callback was never used. Oh, I didn't set it on my source. Okay. Complicated test for this. Don't like that. Yay, I guess. Okay. Handle result. Okay, the error. Yeah, I'm not sure this is a good time of day. I was doing it in the mornings and seemed to get more people, but I don't know. The last half hour has been watching me struggle through async. So, but I will take it on me to go do some experiments with that, see if I can straighten that out. All right, this is it's probably the longest test I've written in a while. I don't think. I mean, I could give that callback optionally. Maybe that would be the way to get it in there. That would help slightly, but okay, let's get this a little bigger view. All right, so we go to create this file source. We set an expectation. We tell the callback, mark the expectation fulfilled, and we set that up in the source. Then we create a result with an error, and we hit the method we're finally testing, handle result with result. We wait till we get our expectation so our callback is done. And once it is, it's there. All right, so I guess I'm going to capture this. We added handling for file errors in file input. Okay, Now, I don't know if I can really trigger this or not. Let's try running. I'm not sure how to make an IO error occur on a selected input. So we open File. Now, maybe I can find one that's the wrong type. Can I find one that's like, okay, I got an idea. Let's go back to resources. All right, I'm gonna change the readability to this thing. Can I do that? Okay. Well, let me hide you for just a second. Okay, so let's take this read only. Oh. That's my only two choices. All right, let's let's see, where's that? I think I can take this. Well, let's. Okay, it's right only. Is that enough of an error? No. Okay. That didn't do it. I don't know. What's an IO error I can trigger on a read? I mean, I can't. I'm a little worried then. I don't have a demonstration of this. How could this work in real life? I mean, maybe a input view. Like, I don't know, if I had some time thing where I could corrupt the file or delete it while it's reading or something like that, but I don't think I have anything that can do that unless I had a way to pause it, and it's running as a block, so I don't have. I mean, it runs the whole thing and does the menu and all that, and at the end of the menu it has chosen the file and it's going to give me back. Well, what's it giving me? Contents of URL. It's giving me the URL. And this is doing the actual read. Okay, I'm going to let that go, I guess, until I can figure out an actual thing that would fail. The read could fail. That's different. Okay, and I think that my make it write only trick might work for that, because it's trying to, this contents of is doing a load of that URL. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next test. All right, so this test, I guess let's select a good file, a good URL. I'm not sure where to put that. Oops. I'm going to take this test as a base. Okay, so this is test file read URL. Okay, we create a file source. Expectation is URL read. We set a callback. We're going to create a result of success. But, URL, how about resource? I think I can just do this. No scale dot text. Scale on ABC. Let's say well, I guess I'll say ABC. Success. URL resource this. That ends that. Why is the spacing weird? Expected comma separator. Success. That's why. Okay. Can I not create a URL? Well, if that fails, the test fails. Okay. Wait for expectation. Yes. And then source.input.count greater than 0. Let's say some source gets read. I'm not going to worry about okay. Complicated again. Okay, we create a source. We set an expectation that the URL is read. Callback is call that fulfillment. We create the callback. Install the callback. Well, let's inline this at least. Okay, then we create a result that's a success based on reading and represents a URL. We're pulling a resource from our stuff, so it should find it there. We wait for the expectation, and then we check that the result actually read something. Okay. And just to make sure our setup is right, let's do that. Well, I don't know. Sometimes I think it's sort of an unfortunate fact that I have to have this to get my better messages. All right, but this is a setup. Okay. Rarely I do these assertions, but once my situation is set up, before I do my triggering method, my act, I make sure that things are correct. So I'm definitely showing that the only reason I got something put in there was this. This function did it. Okay, and this will fail. It certainly doesn't call the callback. File importer has allowed content types UT type. Yes. Okay, so expectation failed, unfulfilled, and it did not read things. Okay, which we expect. Okay, we know that doing all this stuff is going to potentially fail. Okay, so do, and then we got to catch. Okay, well, let's do this. Encoding is .ASCII. Okay. Okay, we get the body. And then I want to make sure it happens. Nope. Okay, so what's going to happen? Well, it's not self.data, it's self.input equals contents. Okay. And I want to do the callback. Cannot find content. Oh, it's body. I think he's a string, right? He better be. Okay. Input up here is string as well and starts empty. Okay. And where's my catch? Oh. It should have been up here. Okay. So we'll create the body. We will set it. This happens asynchronously. Once we get that back, we write it to the main thread, and then we'll just print the error for now. We're not handling it at all. Okay. No syntax errors. Good. Okay. I expect this to work now. Okay. Good. file input can read a given file. Decoding the do block. Hopefully you're saying what I just fixed. Okay. The string contents of is pretty good, right? So, okay. This should work in real life. Okay. Take this. I did the abc.txt, so I'll have to read this one just to prove I can read the other one. Okay. And if I run this, I should get 3 things coming out. Oh. Okay. Let's see. Where can I break? So I selected something, had no errors. Let's take this out. Oh, we don't handle it in the pipeline yet. Okay, content view. Now, this pipeline thing, it really should be modified. It needs to become its own class. Okay. Doesn't belong here. Open the file, take the ABC, run the report, input file nothing. Okay, it's a fact we aren't handling input file names. Okay, we should make something for that. The source. Create a view for the file opener. We have done that. Let's capture that. Okay. Error in selecting add a message. We've done that. Selection works. Open the file. Well, we kind of have done it. Okay. So this input file here tells me that we did run the file input thing, so that's good, but it didn't give us any of this, and it didn't give us any text. All right, so I guess I want to break somewhere. Let's go to the parsons code view. That's the one that has the run button. Okay, he's got an do it action. All right, let's break here. Okay. If I do run, okay, we can see pipeline. Should be the array of inputs, and it should have 4 values. Okay. Oh, look at this. It's got stuff in it. What does he do with it? FileSource. Well, he parses the input. Okay, let's stop there. We'll continue. Okay, we're in FileSource input. Let's see our input. I mean, from this, it looks like it's there. Print input. It's a bunch of stuff. Okay. So, oh, I bet I know what's going on. Okay, so I'll just step over a little bit. Okay. Right. The tunes. The input source thinks it's the only source. It's kind of a conflict here. All right. It's nothing to do with our file input, I don't think. It's more this thing. I'm going to take out the text input because you're only allowed to really have one, and we're not enforcing that yet. So what's happening is the text input comes in and it thinks it should write the tunes as well, and it says I don't have any input. I'm going to make it 0, and that's that. I don't know if I need to revise something about that input and how it's getting there. I don't know, but let me run it this way. Okay, we'll switch to file input. Open the file. We'll take the ABC, and run should put out stuff. Turn off that. Should be another one in a moment. Yep, that, and continue. Yep, there we go. That's the kind of stuff we expect. Okay, so Parsons code, the input file name is not handled. No scaling is the name of the first tune. This is down, down, up, up, down, repeat, and so on. That's telling us the shape, and the graph is based on this line of text. And same thing here. And here. Totally different graph, even though it's supposed to be the same tune. Okay. Right. So let's go back to this. We've handled the first set of failures, but if there's a failure here, we need to deal with it. All right, so this one I think we can, well, how can I create this? Maybe I need a failing file. Okay. File has error reading file. I'll borrow the Win People's thing again. Test when error reading file. Okay, we got our file source. This one, let's say unreadable file. How about unreadable.txt? Okay, and we need to create that file. It's now a new resource used by our tests. New file. We used to have text. Rich text, string text. Okay, let's unreadable dot text. Use text. Okay, and then we're still in here, and chmod -r Unreadable. Okay, it's write only. Now, I don't know if I can check it in like that. That'll be an interesting question. Okay. So text input file source tests. Okay. So I got unreadable.txt. I'm not going to worry about this. We call handle result. I'm going to wait for an expectation. This is a read error. Expectation, wait 2 seconds, and I want to make sure the errors has something again, so it's more like this one. Okay, source to errors. Maybe this is couldn't read file, and I don't know what the actual error is going to be. I'm willing to just accept what it tells me if it's plausible. Yeah. Save anyway. Okay. Cancel. Build succeeded. Found nil. Okay. Oh, maybe I can make this even easier on myself. Result success URL. Unexpectedly found nil when unwrapping an optional. I don't know if this will build now. I'm not sure. Let's try missing.txt. Okay, let's deal with that. This, however, unexpectedly found nil unwrapping an optional. I think URL tries to promise that it's going to be there. Oh. Okay, so unreadable is not a legit URL. No. File source tests. Okay. Unexpectedly found nil. Okay, how am I going to make this thing fail? Why is it failing? Found new one, unwrapping an optional. The optional is the URL. And why is it a failure? Because it is there. It's a legit pointer. We're failing in the test setup, not in our code. So this URL. Well, the URL is, I mean, the file is there. It can't be opened, but I wouldn't think URL should be opening it. I would think contents of would have to, but the URL, I mean, it's specifying the location of the file. If the next line were change the file to readable and then access it, then load it, I would think that would be okay. Obviously it's failing, so I'm not it's not really working. I don't know, maybe I'll go to the Swift doc. But I'm surprised that it tries to read the file in creating this thing. String URL. Well, that's fine. I can get there from there. Okay. Creating it from a resource. Maybe if I did this. URL with path. Maybe resource does require it to open it to make sure it's legit or something. Let's try file URL with path. And then got one extra parent here. That one doesn't fail. Okay. Whether the path may not work. Okay, but maybe we'll get there. Okay, this is better. No such file or directory. Why this failed? Okay, we don't do anything with it. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, error domain unreadable.txt couldn't be opened because there is no such file. Well, maybe that's the error I'm going to get. Unfulfilled expectation, yes. Okay. Well, it doesn't call back, and it doesn't have time to do this. So even if it did it right, I think the message may still be wrong. But let's change it to missing.txt, and I think it'll still be failing. Yep. Cool. Okay. So what are we going to do with the error? Well, we're gonna. I think we have to do the same async again. Okay, because we're updating stuff that's going to be. This is in a thread. We're updating something that needs to happen on the main thread so the UI can interact with it. Okay. So we're going to append to errors. And then couldn't read file error. And we're going to make our callback. How many times I got to make that mistake? Okay. And that seems... Again, I think the message is, I'm probably picking up an incomplete message. Okay. That's quite the... Okay. I mean, if I'd had this... That's probably what I should be expecting. Okay. We need to figure out the errors. Oh. All right, let's break here. I think I'm going to have to catch different types. NS error. Yeah, that's what we want. I don't think I can do that here. Oh, I can. Okay. Turn off that breakpoint. All right. Well, I'm not good enough to time these things to end with me solving the problem right in time 1 minute before the end of this session, but sometimes it works out that way. Okay, so what we've done is we handle errors in FileSource. Okay. Okay. Let's cancel that. Let's delete this. Good. Okay, let's try that again. We don't use unreadable anymore, so it's okay. All right. Thanks for joining, Sasha, especially Sasha172, for all the advice on that test. I wish I could have taken advantage of it, and I'll see what I can learn on the awaits and see if I can figure out a way to incorporate that in. I'll just delete this too. Anyway, next time is tomorrow. It's at 1 to 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time or 6 to 8:30 p.m. UTC. Thanks for joining, and I hope to catch you later. Bye-bye.